This is Amy Poehler. My new movie, Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, is coming to theaters June 14th, and it's making me feel joy and sadness and anger, definitely some disgust, and I think a little fear. But I'm also feeling these new emotions like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui.
It's what you call the boredom.
Okay, that one was weird. It's gonna be the feel everything movie of the summer. Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for All-Star Season 9, Episode 3, titled Snatch Game of Love. My name is Joe Batanz, and I am joined, as always, by one felicitous co-host from the podcast Pod is my co-pilot. Please say...
Come on, Mary, let's hit it.
To Taylor, the Latte Boy. Hello, Taylor, the Latte Boy.
Joseph, how are we this afternoon?
I'm doing very, very well. And if you want to know exactly how Taylor and I are doing, you can go over to patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia and join at the executive tier level and above. And I need to say this, or you can also do Apple. Let me say this. Executive tier level and above, do that. You can also join an Apple podcast. Just scroll up to the title. You'll see, like, subscribe. And either way, you get Just Between Us Girls right in your feed. It's a great thing. This week's an extra special, super long one for a couple of weeks. I don't want to give... Yeah, because Taylor tells his secret story that he's been sitting on, literally. And... and we got to finally hear it, and then we nerded out about something that Taylor and I love to nerd out about. And so it was a super long episode of Just Between Us Girls. Anyway, also one more plug. I'm going to have a plug for Rulaska Thoughts this week. I'm not sure even Taylor knows. I mean, Taylor knows part of this, but like, so I was going to keep this a surprise, but I want to plug Rulaska Thoughts. We had season 11 winner and All-Star 7 competitor Yvie Oddly for a full-length interview. I think it was, I got to cut it down and stuff like that. I'm going to guess 45 minutes with Yvie Oddly, even though IRL was like an hour. There was banter before, banter after. So, yeah, stick around for Rulaska Thoughts. It's going to be good this weekend. I'm going to tell you a secret, Taylor. And I'm going to promise this, but I have to rethink this, actually. I don't know, but this is the part I don't think you know. Do you know that Yvie got mad at me?
During the interview?
During the interview.
No.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Got very angry. Very angry. To the point where... I don't know if other people did this, but, you know, Jeremy was listening live and told me, because I said, oh, what do you think of the interview? He's like, oh, well, I only heard up to the part where Yvie yelled at you, and then I felt so uncomfortable for you that I turned it off. But I'm going to tell you something. There's going to be a whole speech before this. Because look, here's the deal.
Okay.
I'll comment more later. But, you know, you're a mental health professional, so I'll let you infer what you're going to infer. But Yvie has the kind of personality where she can get angry on a dime and not angry on a dime.
Right. Yes. She's very hot or cold.
Very hot or cold. So as quickly as she got angry, just as quickly she was back in the interview. And what I'm going to tell you also, the interview, okay, so I'll break everyone down on this. Pre-anger, it's all Drag Race and Drag Race tea. Okay? Nerding out on Drag Race. After the interview, and I'm going to say I haven't seen anything like this on any...
After the anger. After she got angry.
After the anger, there's definitely a demarcation, a line of demarcation, where, and I've seen these other interviews she's been doing, I haven't seen one where she's so real. She's very real. We meet the real Yvie Oddly after the anger. So, and that's what I really wanted. So I'm actually so I told Jeremy, I was happy with the interview. Here's the other thing too. It goes back to, because I handle it it's not like I went like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. No, I handled this shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed back on some of the things she said. Guys, it is a really good interview. I haven't edited it yet. So it's going to be shaped. That's why I don't know the exact length. It's going to be shaped, take out awkward moments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, it's going to be an interview you're going to want to listen to. Yvie Oddly, Rulaska Thoughts this week.
So, all right. So we've talked to, or you have talked to Eureka, Dita, and Yvie. Is there somebody that I missed? I know that you
Mrs.
went to
Kasha Davis.
Mrs. Kasha Davis. That's right. Okay.
Oh, and then the people at DragCon. Yeah.
But not
but
Soju.
DragCon is like, oh no, don't. Here's the thing. I'll tell people. I'm going to tell people this. It comes up several times, but I very casually drop in my interview with Yvie my hatred for Todrick Hall. I just casually mention this, how much I hate him in passing, right?
Yeah.
But I casually mentioned my hatred for Todrick Hall in it. This Soju, I should have mentioned Soju.
Well, how did she respond when did she just gloss over it when you said you can't stand Todrick Hall?
She would just chuckle and not comment. Off the air, I'll give you a little bit of behind the scenes tea. Off the air, this is actually good for people to know. People who don't like uncomfortable things. She stayed, when we got off the show, she stayed on the, it's not a Zoom call, but Riverside, which is like Zoom for podcasts. Mm-hmm. She stayed on Riverside with me for like 15 to 20 minutes just shooting the shit. So, okay. Yeah, so it wasn't like she was like, goodbye, sir. And like, no, it was very cordial.
I said good day.
Yeah. And on that, so what I'll tell you is on that, we talked about a bunch. It was sad. There's no way for me to, without hitting record, there's no way for me to record that. There's just no way. What's funny is, so in that, because she said some really good shit in there too. But what's funny though is in this conversation I had with her, I did also say, and I said to her, listen, don't react. I'm going to say something right now. I don't want you to react. I don't want you to, I'm not asking you to chime in. I'm just going to tell you, I hate Brooklyn Heights. And told her about my deep hatred for Brooklyn Heights and about how the Afterthoughts, just to be funny, got a cameo from her for me and whatnot. And she, to her credit, did not react. I don't know what she liked, or whether I don't know whether there was a little bit of a smile on her face, but it could be just like, this asshole. I can't wait till I tell Brooklyn Heights, Right. But
what season were they? Season 12?
Season 11.
She was season 11. Okay.
Yeah. With like Silky Nutmeg Ganache and all them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all right. Well, this week the girls donned their best celebrity impression. Well, let me rephrase that. I wrote this. This week the girls donned celebrity impressions for Snatch Game of Love. You know what? It might be their best celebrity impression. Okay.
Yeah.
The girls don subjectively their best celebrity impressions for Snatch Game of Love. On the runway category is a tail and two titties. Nina West and Gottmik were named the top two all-stars of the week and battled it out in a lip sync to earn the right to block one of the queens. In the end, Gottmik was named the winner again and chose to cut Jorgeous. Taylor the Latte Boy, what did you think of that lip sync between Nina and Gottmik? And did the right queen get the chop?
There was some arguing in my house last night as to whether or not the right queen got the chop. I think, considering that we have seen that smock on Nina for the last 3 weeks, I was expecting to be wowed by whatever was under there and wasn't. And also the fever with which she was trying to get those things off was, there wasn't anything fluid to it. There wasn't anything where it was. Speaking of like, not Soju, who was the one that had all the balls that, she was on like the first episode she was the first one to go home in one of the seasons where she was trying to rip the squirt off that had all the little balls on it. Why can I not remember her name? Anyway, it was horrible. It was a mess.
I'm just letting you sink. I don't know who you're talking about. Which is funny because right now there are like, a bunch of afterthoughts and people at home going like, oh my God, it was sugar cane.
Right.
Here. I don't know.
So I loved her legs. She had great legs. I remember that. The one with the balls that the balls were when Leslie Jones was on, because Leslie Jones was saying to her, you've got this sort of thing. And then she just completely like fell on her face. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who it is. It doesn't matter. So, though I have seen video of her at Folsom getting fucked out of a window. But
once you said that, I know who you're talking about. Rock M. Sakura.
Yes, Rock'em Sakura. Yes.
I love how you're giving me every single thing. They're on this season. They're an early out, and then you're like, oh, the one where she's at Folsom getting shit fucked out of her in the window. I'm like, oh, Rock'em Sakura. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
It felt very Rock'em Sakura. It felt very like I can't figure out what I'm doing, and I can't. And the fact that they weren't really focusing on like the words on it or anything like that lets you know that really Gottmik was going to win. So my husband thought Nina should have won, and I said, "There's no way. That was too sloppy of lip sync." I think because he really likes Nina.
Oh, okay.
So we're not necessarily huge Gottmik fans in this house.
Oh, there's going to be a Gottmik rant today, just to give you a preview.
Oh, yay. Okay, good.
Yeah, there's going to be a Gottmik rant. So, the Nina lip sync, and she's been wearing that fucking schmuck the whole time. And it was embarrassing. And for anyone who listens to Just Between Us, by the way, this comes out before Just Between Us Girls, so it's going to make no sense to anyone but me and you, Taylor.
Yep.
But Nina taking off these outfits was like me running up the stairs to my bathroom. That one day, like I was telling you about in Just Between Us Girls. Mm-hmm. So that was what it looked like. Just me just taking, by the way, maybe it was the way they edited it, but like she would do these horrible reveals. And then I didn't see what was the reveal. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And then she'd do another reveal immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple of them she did behind Gottmik, so you couldn't see them. I mean, it was just, it was very frantic. And I think in her, that would have worked more for something like last week's song versus something like this, which is supposed to be very like sexy and slinky when you're just ripping off Mrs. Roper smocks. Yeah. It wasn't the right time to show that off.
And so your opinion is she shouldn't have, who do you think she should have sent home instead of Jorgeous?
Oh, I didn't even get to that.
Because you said there was an argument who got the chop.
No, there was an argument over who won the lip sync.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So, okay. I mean, it makes sense, I guess. I mean, Jorgeous has a pin. So I guess, it does make sense to some level. It also kind of breaks up the cycle a little bit because usually you would see the girl, but of course Gottmik got it 2 weeks in a row, so she can't cut herself. It makes sense. I mean, I find it interesting that they all kind of know the pattern of, there's got to be a comedy thing coming up, or there's got to be a dance challenge, or there's got to be something like this next. So that's why I'm going to cut this person. But I think that also speaks to, we all know the blueprint of this show. Like, there's not that big of a variance on things when they do stuff anymore.
Well, ultimately what it is that the stakes are so low, if there are any stakes at all. So like, okay, well, because you can still win money for your charity, and you can still get all the other. You just can't get the badge, which ultimately too, because I could see it being sort of maybe worrisome during All-Star 7 on the all-winner season, because you're like, well, who knows what's going to happen? But we already know they're following the same pattern. They did this 2 badges that you can give away last time,
right? Early on.
So we know at the close to the end, they're going to do like this big badge-a-thon where you can just win a bunch of badges, so it all evens out, you know? So like ultimately at the end of the day, it's everything's up in the air. You just have to pretend for the camera. So the stakes are just so low.
Yeah.
I think in fairness, I didn't even think about who, so that's what Gottmik was doing. Like, who am I going to cut who's had a badge before? And Jiri has already been cut twice. She didn't want to cut Roxy. She went with Jorgeous. Okay. Because I think if I was just doing all things being equal, I probably would have cut Plastique. Just guessing what the next challenge might be,
I was surprised. Okay, and I just got done saying we know the blueprint, but I was surprised that they're doing the makeover this early on.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the freedom that they have now. Is I think they used to do the makeover so late because there's only a few girls, so they didn't have to get that many people. On this one, it's always going to be 8 girls. So they're like, well, we can just do the fucking makeover, and we want to do the makeover and get 8 people. So they don't have to like schedule it as much. All right. Any other thoughts on this lip sync?
No, it was horrible. It was horrible on both ends, but I mean, between the two, Gottmik gave more of a traditional lip sync than what Nina was trying to do.
All right. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break? And we come back. We are going to talk about the rest of the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Hi, I'm your inner dream monologue, and you're fast asleep, so I'll be quick. Great job using the Colgate Optic White Overnight Teeth Whitening Pen before bed. When used as directed, it gives you a visibly whiter smile in just 7 days. So while I fly and talk to animals, you're removing teeth stains with ease. Sweet dreams. And when you wake up, keep on living life to the brightest. Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
This episode is supported by FX's Clipped, the scandalous story of the 2014 Clippers owner's racist remarks captured on tape and heard around the world. The series charts the tape's impact on a dysfunctional basketball organization striving to win against their reputation as the most cursed team in the league. Starring Lawrence Fishburne, Jackie Weaver, Cleopatra Coleman, and Ed O'Neill. FX's Clipped, streaming June 4th, only on Hulu.
And we are back. After the lip sync, Angera pretends to be angry, and Shannel and Nina both learn that they brought the same Snatch Game character, Liberace. The next day, RuPaul informs the girls they will be competing in the Snatch Game of Love. Later in the workroom, Roxy and Plastique fret about the Snatch Game Vanjie and Gottmik horse around, and Roxy gives advice to Nina and Shannel about their Liberace problem. Taylor the Latte Boy. So much time passes in the show, but not a lot really happens. So let's start back after the lip sync. Did you have any particular notes about anything that happened after the lip sync?
Well, do you think that it's going to get to the point eventually with the Ruby snippers that they're going to actually be mad when they walk in?
No,
I don't think so either. I think that this is because we know we're all here, but whereas I feel like there were times with All-Star 7 that a couple of them actually were pissed that they got snipped. I feel like this one, you said there seems to be very low stakes this season. So it's just sort of like you snipped me this time.
Because they don't know what the challenge is. Here's the deal. If they wanted to make this interesting, if you're listening, World of Wonder, if they told them the challenge next week before they made the chop, then you could see people being angry. Like if RuPaul said, okay, Gottmik, you've earned the right to give someone the chop. Let me tell you, next week, we're doing a makeover challenge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that would have gone to Plastique, no problem. That would have been immediately.
Yeah, then there's stakes, and the girls are like, oh shit, I could do well on this. And then Gottmik could go like, oh, I got to cut Plastique. I got to cut somebody who knows makeup. And then I think you could see some real anger because now they realize, oh, I could have won that. Yeah. The problem is that anger is probably delayed. Like I bet you Roxy was actually kind of pissed when she found out, oh, this is the whatever it is, the ball, where she would have had a chance, where she did have a chance of winning, Yeah. Or if they would have cut Nina, they probably would have cut Nina knowing it was Snatch Game of Love. Because they could do a thing where, because they're like, well, we want the surprise, the fake surprise, because the girls know what the challenges are. But we want the surprise on camera and we tell them the challenge. But like maybe give her an envelope and she looks at it. And then she makes a chomp. And then after the lip sync, they reveal it to the girls all there.
One, you could get the surprise of all of them at the end of the episode. That surprise where they all yell. Yes. But also... So you mean only the girl who wins gets to know what it is first? Yeah. And then okay.
Or if you tell them all, you're right, you get the surprise right then. And then the girls could be making obvious pitches, like, please, I know I can win this one. Like,
yes, do it before they all go back to deliberate.
You know what? You're right. Name the top 2.
Because we're not getting that of where people are going up and saying, pleading their case, which is why Untucked it's not great.
Yeah.
But it's just everybody kissing each other's ass. But that would be a way to bring back that part of it, especially if you have situations in which queens don't like each other, which we're not really seeing this season, but where you say, like, you get
be vague. You could be vague. You can like, next week is a comedy challenge. That's all it is. Or next week is a design challenge. You know, very vague, but then enough information where they could be making the pitch why they should be not saved.
Because like a design challenge could be an outfit or it could be a room.
And also what you could do is it allows strategy where someone who, like, let's say it's a design challenge. Nina knows she's not going to win the design challenge. So she could use that, give me the chop and I will do this for this. So like they can use it as leverage. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll take the chop, but if in return I want this.
They would never give the girls that much freedom to come up with that sort of stuff.
But it would be better television.
It would be. No. We've solved the All-Stars problem.
Yeah.
On Drag Race Recap. So World of Wonder, if you're listening, All-Stars 10.
I've always thought World of Wonder should hire me. But what would happen? I have to quit the podcast. I'd be fine with.
Bringing in that WoW money.
Yeah. Bringing in all that WoW $30K a year that I'll be making from them.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, everyone. Okay, so that's after the lip sync. You said everything you have to say.
No, well, I think it's interesting that in, 25 Snatch Games or however many there have been, we've never seen Liberace. Like that, to me, when they both said that was the most interesting part of the first act, was the fact that the two of them not only brought the same thing, but neither one of them was necessarily backing down, but it wasn't the Gia gun, well, what you think you're going to do isn't necessarily what you're going to do. It was
because there's no stakes, Taylor. Like, we'll get to this when we get to the table visits. RuPaul is so fucking checked out. She doesn't care. She doesn't try and convince him to do something else. She doesn't tell him it's a bad idea. She's like, whatever. They could be saying like, I'm going to go on there. I'm going to play paper. And she's like, sure. Okay, whatever. How you going to make paper funny? Okay, good.
They basically did, a couple of them. I mean, when somebody comes and says, I'm going to play a dog, that, and there wasn't
rant about this.
No, I might be right there with you with the rant, and that there wasn't even there wasn't the shade rattle or anything when she says it, or just like that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
It just, where you could tell a couple of times she was like, okay, I know lunch is in a half an hour, so I just have to get through these interviews and then I'm done.
Yeah. She's just so fucking phoning this shit in. But with the Liberace, well, if you think about it really in the history of it, I believe it's All-Stars 2 when does Kennedy do Little Richard? Is that All-Stars 2?
No, that's 7. That's in season 7.
Okay, so you got to think about the years before Kennedy does Little Richard. There is like pretty much a pretty not strict. Every rule we say, guys, by the way, like the same thing with like points and stuff like that. None of this has ever been said by the show. The show has never said this. So the show has never said you have to portray a woman. There was just sort of an internal with among the queens rule that you have to play a woman. Okay. And then Little Richard flew by under the radar because, I mean, he's dead. So I don't think it's bad to say this, but he was a homosexual man, right? Mm-hmm. I think he was always closeted. I don't think he ever, well, it's weird. He had like a weird relationship with it where he'd go out, he'd come out and be like, I'm gay, but then go back in and say he wasn't. But so they're like, okay, well, we can do this flamboyantly gay man. Okay. Then you start to see them like where now people are just like straight men now. They're just doing like whatever. But Liberace, yeah, it's interesting. Well, here's the deal. We'll get to when we get to the Snatch Game. I'm surprised that they both bizarrely had kind of the same take to an extent on Liberace. They did it in a way that I would have done it differently. We'll talk about it there. Yeah, that is weird. They both did Liberace.
Yeah.
And that it hasn't been done before. Well, because I think it takes a certain age of queens. In fact, I was telling Jeremy today or yesterday, because he was wondering who were the different celebs were, and I go, there's a couple on there you won't even know who they are. Like they're so speaking to RuPaul and her generation.
Yeah.
That like is there anybody under 40 who knows who Marla Gibbs is?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't even say 45.
Even the joke that Michelle said where she went Mary, where she did that is a joke that most people wouldn't necessarily get.
Yeah, when did 227 go off the air? Because millennials would know Jackie from Sister Sister, correct?
Yeah, 227 went off the air. That was probably the late 80s, like 89, maybe 90.
Yeah, let me see. I'm looking up 227 now.
I know that Marla Gibbs is on Days of Our Lives. Because Jackie is on Days of... Well, she was at one point within the last year or two because she played Jackie's mother.
Oh, okay.
So, I know
the final episode was on May 6, 1990.
Okay.
That means you can be cognizant of it. Cognizant, you have to be born in very early 80s. So you have to be, like in your mid-40s.
Right.
Early
and even
mid-40s, yeah.
When you think of Marla Gibbs, what do you think of 227?
No,
or do
I
you
think of the Jeffersons.
The Jeffersons, yeah.
Yeah. So, so like that, I mean, that's speaking very specifically to RuPaul. And okay, we're starting to get to the Snatch Game because that's a whole thing. So Liberace, all right. Anything from the workroom, whether it's fretting about them, they're plotting what they're going to do and all that.
Just the way that when she came in and was talking about Snatch Game, I thought it was interesting to show the way they showed Nina and Shannel looking worried. Mm-hmm. Like there was these like quick clips of like where they looked like this was going to have, like it didn't go anywhere. They basically decided that they're both doing it, but you almost made it where it's sort of led you to think like they're going to have a fight or they're going to have where one of them is going to give it up and let the other one do it or whatever. And it never, they just sort of both decided, and it was never talked about on air. Let's just both do Liberace and see how it goes.
It was so clearly just editing stuff because it could have been those looks were just vague looks, you know?
I understand that, but I'm talking about the narrative that they were trying to do.
I think it was never
going
problem.
Somewhere. Yeah.
I think because I feel this has happened in the past because that's a weird thing too is again, typically, I don't know what the rules were for this one, but typically when they do Snatch Game, they're supposed to bring two characters. So in case this stuff happens or for whatever reason. And so in theory, I don't know if they really did. They had another character they could have fallen back on. That's why you had what you want to do is not necessarily what you're going to do conversation because there was another character. It was who was going to back down and do the other character.
So do you think it's possible that maybe everybody else brought two, but that when they both said they were doing Liberace, the producer said, okay, and didn't say anything. So then that way they both didn't have somebody else they could go to?
Well, could be. Or the thing too is that there's a unique situation with Snatch Game of Love where it's broken up in two.
Right, but Caitlyn Jenner wasn't Gia in the other group, so they could have had two Caitlyn Jenners there.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know, girl. I think all rules. I'm gonna tell you, all rules are out the window. Like, I don't think anything we know because they're like, there's no stakes. Who cares?
Yeah,
whatever. We can do whatever the fuck we want. No one cares. Sure, two characters, great, awesome. So, yeah. So, like, I don't think it really mattered. And I thought, it might be interesting television. We've never done this before, so whatever. So, I've been informed, I don't know if this is true, I've done no research, but I've been told that Gottmik is a gay man.
Okay.
That said, there's a quick moment with Gottmik and Vanjie. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think Gottmik wants to fuck Vanjie. I don't get that energy the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
But the look of fucking love that Gottmik has on his face when he's horsing around, with Vanjie, I'm like, horse around. I'm like, Vanjie has a real big carrot, right? But like, this is like, if I was a high school teacher and I saw two high school kids acting this way, I would be like, oh, one wants to fuck the other.
Yeah.
And so I just want to know if you saw that, you caught that or anything.
I didn't. Well, I saw that last week when they were chasing each other around outside, where Gottmik was chasing Vanjie around with the paintbrush or the spray paint or whatever that was. I didn't necessarily pick up on it this time. Honestly, Gottmik annoys me. There's something about Gottmik's energy that I just don't necessarily care for. So I try to, and Vanjie's not much further off that list.
Oh my God.
So I kind of tend to tune them out a little bit.
Yeah. You and me both. All right. Next, RuPaul entered the workroom for some table visits. One by one, the girls share who they're impersonating, and RuPaul gives them advice. Later, RuPaul introduced the head of the foundation, donating the money. Oh, I forgot about this. Donating the money to the charities, and then informs the girls that the top 2 queens will receive 2 badges, one to keep and one to give away to a fellow queen. Any thoughts on the table visits, Taylor?
They showed everybody else's table visits except for the one that mattered. If they had Nina and Shannel go up both with Liberace and have a conversation about it, that would have made that more interesting to me.
I'll tell you why. Because they were both like, yeah, we're fine.
Okay, but how many things happen on the show that with the exact placement of a shade rattle or an extra long pause and a confessional, does it make it more dramatic than it actually is? Yeah. So in that regard, it was a little boring. I don't understand. I'm starting to get annoyed with I'm going to pick a character that no one knows so that I can do whatever I want with it, i.e. Cleopatra and Lassie the dog. I think that is I think that's a cop-out. You know, if you're going to do a celebrity, do them, like practice them, learn about them, have all sorts of stuff that you have ready for them, not just, I'm going to, you know what, I decided I'm going to be this person. We saw that last season with Amelia Earhart with Q, which that also fell flat. But yeah, I'm just sort of like, really? There's nobody else. There's no YouTube star that you could do, or some influencer that you want to do, or a makeup artist, anything like that. It just felt like a cop out.
I'm reserving all my thoughts for Snatch Game. What I will say, and I have a question, I have a theory. Why does RuPaul live so much for Jorgeous? When Utica did that thing about whether she smoked pot or whatever and made those crazy faces and RuPaul was dying, I didn't find it as funny as RuPaul did, but I got why it was funny. Or like, I don't know, other people. Jinx is very funny, and I know RuPaul lives for Jinx and all these people. Right? Angeria, she lives for Angeria. She lived for, who was the one from last season? And she was the older queen. She was in the finals, and we all thought she was going to win.
Oh, Saphira
Crystal, right?
Yeah.
I get that. We know what RuPaul likes, what RuPaul doesn't like, and you know she likes when And I've said I want to make it clear. This RuPaul loves any kind of minstrel, regardless of race, Black, Latino, Asian, any kind of like exaggerated stereotype you do a race. Right. She lives for that. Lives. I don't get the same thing happened with the Crystal Method, right? There are these certain people that they're not doing anything. They're just being themselves, and it's not particularly interesting. And she fucking lives for them. Like Jorgeous, she's like, I think she wants to fuck Jorgeous. And I'm not even being funny. I know RuPaul and her husband are open. I don't know what RuPaul's type is. I think she wants to fuck Jorgeous. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like to me, if I'm being honest.
Maybe because you've got, she falls into one of two camps. Like when you talk about Saphira and Jinx and Angeria, they have the ability to go back, the kind of have the ball go back and forth. You know, Saphira was a great example of that, of where she didn't seem to be afraid of Ru. You know, she respected Ru. But it wasn't this where, I mean, she was willing to go toe to toe with her on things like going back and forth through like that. But then you've got people like Jorgeous, who is being her authentic self. And maybe that's what Ru is drawn to in conversations with her and thinks that she's funny because, you know, Jorgeous doesn't seem that bright and is just kind of going through life on her looks and her dancing ability and her, you know, that sort of thing. And
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I just found a parallel for her. Yeah.
So it's very much a like, oh, you silly little, Disney woodland creature, here on Drag Race, and just kind of, she thinks that's funny that this, with all respect to this airhead made it all the way up here and is just kind of going through life, and she's got a great body and she knows how to do her makeup and all that.
I'm walking back that she wants to fuck her. You described what you think she likes about Jorgeous, and I found another person we know RuPaul has the same reaction to, and she's the same type. LaToya Jackson. She loves Jorgeous the way she loves LaToya Jackson. It's the same thing. It's that same airhead, like little Annie Fanny, like personality that Jorgeous has. Is very actually reminiscent of LaToya Jackson, actually.
You're right.
And they're authentically themselves and they just say crazy shit, and
that allows for a level of feeling superior.
Perhaps, yeah.
Possibly.
Yes. She loves Jorgeous the way she loves LaToya Jackson. All right.
Yeah, you're never going to get a job at World of Wonder now, right?
Do I really want a job at World of Wonder?
No, I know, but it's a callback from earlier. That's
World of Wonder, call me.
World of Wonder, please call him so I get my Saturdays back.
By the way, we could do Fridays. I just got to get my shit together on Fridays.
I'm teasing. Guys,
I'm going to get a letter later. Okay. And I want everyone to know, because Jeremy said last week, like, wow, you guys are really negative. And maybe I'll go into this deeper in the show. And later, you know what? I'll comment on this in a wrap up. So there's going to be a wrap up to come about the negativity. But usually I'm like, oh, maybe we are negative. But I'm going to say this time in this episode, it's worth it. Okay, let's talk about the Snatch Game. In round 1 of the Snatch Game of Love, Monet Exchange, presenting as male, a male named Kevin, I think that's her real name, was the secret snatchler. The celebs were as follows. Angeria played Marla Gibbs. We didn't even talk about Roxy returning to this Tasha salad. We'll come back.
I was going to talk about that, and we can talk about it now.
Yeah. During Snatch Game. Shannel did the round 1 Liberace, and then Jorgeous, and I have a lot to say about this, did John Leguizamo. Did she, though? Let's talk about this round 1 of Snatch Game. Your thoughts?
Well, Angeria didn't play Marla Gibbs. Angeria played Angeria. Angeria played Angeria as an old church lady, is really what she did. And I was disappointed with this because, the character, I mean, for the children. So The Jeffersons was a show that was on in like the 70s and like early 80s. And she was, even though she wasn't one of the Jeffersons, she was the funniest person on that show when she played Florence, their maid. And the thing about Florence was Florence and George Jefferson didn't like each other. So they would have this back and forth with each other. That was the best part of the Jeffersons. At least it was to me when I was growing up. So if she had picked somebody, she could have picked any of the people there to maybe do that, where like everything they said was dumb and call somebody a turkey and all of the things that she used to do back with, then it would have been Marla Gibbs. This was just, I'm going to be myself, only I'm going to add like 20 years on and I go to church. That was all I got from that character.
This was, people don't know this. Again, people who aren't of this age and don't understand, like people who never saw the Jeffersons regularly as a kid, on a rerun, after school. You're right. You nailed it. Marla Gibbs as Florence the maid was a big smartass. And in fact, when Angeria said she was going to do Marla Gibbs, I was like, that is fucking brilliant. If you pull it off, it is your Snatch Game to lose, because you have literally, I really think we're going to the Jeffersons. The only thing that maybe could have rivaled Marla Gibbs if they played Mother Jefferson, right? Like,
no, but they can't use the character's name, so nobody would get that reference from that woman who's been dead for 40 years.
She died during the show. Yeah.
Did she?
Yeah, she died during the show. Yeah. So on the Jeffersons, George Jefferson's mother was this old black lady, and she hated the wife, Louise.
She hated Wheezy. She hated Louise.
And she was like, kind of like an old Florence. She was just really sarcastic, but like an old black lady kind of way. Like, I think if someone did Mother Jefferson,
but super passive aggressive.
And if they could pull that off at Snatch Game, RuPaul at least would think that was one of the greatest Snatch Game characters. But this was a huge fumble. This was such low hanging fruit, so to speak, in that like all you had to do was do it correctly, and you would have won. RuPaul would have been on the floor laughing. And Angeria, when she said, I'm like, oh, that is perfect, because I thought Angeria had the chops to be Marla Gibbs. The one thing I will say is it could have been the format. Maybe if they would have been on the traditional Snatch Game, she maybe could have pulled it off, because you're not really volleying with RuPaul on Snatch Game of Love. You're playing with the Snatchler.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what part of it was. But yeah, huge missed opportunity, even though she did okay.
Oh, she was funny.
She was fine.
But she was funny as Angeria.
Yeah. People don't realize she chose a perfect character, and if she would have just been competent at it, she would have won the whole thing. She would have won the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge fumble in the fact that she was only fine. All right. Tasha Salad, Roxy.
Okay. You know how in Mean Girls they say stop trying to make fetch happen?
Yes.
Yeah, stop trying to make Tasha Salad happen. This is, I don't get, again, but this is also another cop-out. This is almost even a more egregious cop-out than Cleopatra and Lassie, which we'll talk about later, because it's a character that you created. So the only point of reference is two previous episodes of Drag Race. And if that's the case, if that is the character you're doing, it needs to be done perfectly.
Yeah.
You need to have all of those jokes ready to go like a machine gun and just boom, 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 boom. And it was just when she said Tasha Salad, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me with this.
Because it bombed on All Stars 2, right? She did it on All Stars 2 at some point, right?
Yeah. She was the host of the
the comedy show. Yeah.
Right.
And she bombed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, awful.
Maybe
awful,
it was supposed
awful.
to be vindication for Tasha Salad.
Who do you think Roxy should have been?
Oh God, I don't know. Roxy. Okay, so somebody that is curvy and can be funny. Sofia Vergara.
Oh, that's who she was going to do last time. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she was going to do that last time, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Fifi talked her out of it.
Okay, well, all the more reason to do it this time.
Yeah. It's actually kind of surprising. If she was really edgy, she would have been like the bus.
No, too soon. She says she doesn't like those bus jokes anymore.
Well, don't listen to the show. Okay. Next, we have Shannel as Liberace.
I thought the prosthetics were great. I thought that she definitely, and she talks about this in Untucked. She said she was so focused on getting the look right that she forgot to make Liberace funny. And I would agree with that. I would agree with that 95%. I think that a lot of the jokes that she made were low-hanging fruit, like you talk about, that weren't necessarily super original. So yeah, I mean, she looked like Liberace. She looked like Shannel. She looked like a female impersonator doing Liberace, but that was really the best I can say about that.
This is really a case where I'd be like, do you watch the show, Shannel? Because this is a mistake. I know she's never done Snatch Game. This is her first Snatch Game. But this is legitimately a season 3 through 7 type Drag Race mistake. Because I think most of the queens have learned that it's not about the look. And it's not about presenting realness. This isn't, what's that show, Illusions or whatever? What's the show in Vegas?
We'll call it Illusions. I don't
remember.
Whatever it is.
You know that one. That actually Coco and Derek were part of, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like a celebrity impersonation show. This is not that, you know? And the fact that she doesn't know that makes me think, have you not watched the show? you know? Especially since, you know, in the conversation she has with Nina, Nina says, do you think they'll do Snatch Game next week? And Shannel goes, no, they always do that later. And I was like, they do that later on the regular show, but historically
when there's
on
16
All-Stars,
girls. Yeah.
Historically in All-Stars, they do it fairly early on.
There's been seasons where it's been the second episode they did Snatch Game.
Yeah. Historically, they do it fairly early on All-Stars. So I don't think she watches the show or studies the show, which I think if you're going to be a competitor on the show is a big mistake. Right. And so, yes, she had to look down. She brought nothing. It was not good. But I have a problem with both Liberace's, and I will get to that when we get to Nina's one. But you're right. She looked exactly like Liberace, and that was about it. The other tough thing about Liberace is, I mean, I guess you're doing a send-up anyway, but I think it's really tough to pull off a Liberace outfit unless you spend $100,000 on the outfit.
Right.
That's sort of the thing, is that, like, unless you spend a lot of money on the outfit for a Snatch Game, it's going to look like a Party City Liberace. So I don't think, what's funny, I don't think Liberace would have worn that outfit.
No, it would have been decked dripping in jewels and fur and like all of that sort of
50-foot long fur coat and stuff like that. Like that. I mean, so anyway, that's that. We're getting nitpicky. All right, now Jorgeous is John Leguizamo.
Wow. That wasn't a character. That was just sexy Jorgeous going into to all the answers.
She didn't do the character from Tu Wong Fu at all.
Right.
She didn't do anything John Leguizamo. She was literally just Jorgeous going to the salsa club in Washington Heights on a Saturday night.
I'm going to gently disagree with you. I think she did do John Leguizamo and Tu Wong Fu, but like she watched one scene. Okay. She watched one scene of John Leguizamo doing the I got more legs than a bucket of chicken. And that's the only part of it that she watched. So that's the only point of reference that she had.
That said, and this goes back to our earlier conversation, on a second watch, the first watch, I was like, this is a mess, right? The second watch, I was like, for the reasons we said earlier, this is unintentionally brilliant. The way she just wasn't really getting the questions and was talking about like gaping and like fucking and stuff like that. And I was like, she's in her own universe. I think the LaToya Jackson comparison is exactly right. It is a good lives, and I think that's what RuPaul gets. And now I'm like, oh, it's inadvertently genius. Like, it's not genius because she's not doing it intentionally. It's camp. That's what it is. Jorgeous's John Leguizamo is 100% camp. It's beautiful unintentionally because it's actually horrible. But okay, yeah. All right, let's go to Snatch Game of Love round 2. In round 2 of the Snatch Game of Love, Raven, presented as male, because that's her real name, David, was the secret snatchler. The celebs were as follows: Vanjie was Cleopatra, Nina was Liberace, Ali Wong was Plastique. No, I'm sorry, Plastique was Ali Wong.
Right.
And Gottmik was Pal. They probably did this for reasons, but she was the first lassie. Okay. Your thoughts. Let's go one by one here. Well, first of all, your thoughts on it overall.
Well, I'm surprised to see that Three's Company is coming back because apparently Mr. Furley lives.
Oh, in that in Raven's like one piece like jumpsuit or leisure suit or whatever,
with the mustache and the weird pulled face and the filler in the lips and the like terrifying looking, just like ugh. Sinewy would be a word I would use to describe Raven in that particular moment. So, okay, but getting to the actual contestants, Vanjie was exactly what I was talking about before. Vanjie was Vanjie. Vanjie was Vanjie in a Party City Cleopatra outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And the rug thing didn't make any sense. I mean, I get that maybe like flying carpets, like maybe that's where she was going with that, but then
is that
I don't
where she
understand.
was going to?
That's the only reason I could think that she did that, was that she was.
Well, no, aren't there like Egyptian rugs and stuff like that?
Well, okay, yeah, but to the best of our knowledge, Cleopatra was never wrapped in one.
But why would that character need a reveal? I mean, it's the most basic character. It's the most Party City character. Not that she looked Party City, but it's like she looked like a Party City Cleopatra. Like it wasn't some special like ta-da. Like why was a reveal necessary?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying is it just, but even then she was Vanjie. That's it. She was just being Vanjie. It reminds me of when Candy Muse was the makeup artist, the one that wears the wrap, has the head that's in a wrap.
Oh, Patrick Starr?
Patrick Starr. She was just being Candy Muse. It's the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. There was nothing about the character with the exception of the pyramid joke. I'm on my pyramid. That one was actually pretty funny, but for the most part was just like, okay, you're being you.
If I'm being honest though, a lot of those lines, I'm like, did she steal those from like the hidden lyrics of Baddest Bitches in Herstory that like Lucian wrote? I'm on my period, like that would be in the song or something like that. I just made that up. I think Cleopatra is in it though. Yeah, because it's Alaska. She does it like a jersey. She doesn't. No. They don't think it.
No, she does like Britney Spears.
But no, the good thing is a real pain in the ass. Remember that the end. In Baddest Bitches in Herstory, all the queens have some sort of like closing line. Okay,
right.
And I think on Cleopatra, she goes, yeah, it was a real pain in the ass. Like she's all of a sudden like super Italian. I don't know why. I thought that. Okay, now I got to look it up.
That Cleopatra was more like Britney Spears.
We're gonna find out. I'm gonna look it up right now. I gotta go.
Okay.
All right, Taylor. I have the song here. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, isn't this? I think Jeremy pointed out to me earlier. This is "You Can't Stop the Beat" from.
Okay,
it's definitely very heavily borrowed from that.
Oh, yeah.
So how did that work out with you and Mark Antony?
He turned out to be a real pain in the ass.
There you go. She should just listen. She would have gotten all the jokes.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that was Vanjie.
Yeah. Anyway, by the way, one of Jeremy's favorite Afterthought episodes of all time is when Jay Ellis and I did an analysis of this episode. So you can go to patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia and go in the archive somewhere and find that episode and listen. It's actually, he made me listen to it. It's so funny. So Jeremy had this fantasy. I'm going to get in so much trouble right now. He had this fantasy of listening to old episodes of Afterthought with me, right? And he would like be looking, like when you have a friend who there's a movie you really like, and you're showing them the movie and you're kind of looking to see their reaction at certain parts. But here's the deal. It was my own show. And granted, I have a terrible memory and I was remembering things. I don't remember anything. So like, oh my God, that's so funny. My favorite one was, there was an episode of Hello Uglies, the one where Lori does the iconic bit about calling the dad about the blowjob and something like that.
Right.
And remember, if anyone remembers that episode, I am literally like bent over, can't breathe, laughing, like peeing my pants, right? In the episode. And we're listening to it. I'm smiling, maybe chuckling a little bit, right? And he gets really upset. He goes, "You're not laughing." And I go, "There's literally a recording of me laughing. What are you talking about? We're listening to a recording." And he's like so mad that I don't find it just as funny, almost 10 years later. Anyway.
God, that was like 10 years ago, wasn't it?
Almost like 8 years ago or something. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Time flies, Taylor. Time flies. All right. Nina West is Liberace.
Well, I did think it was funny at the end where RuPaul said she was giving more Grandpa Munster than Liberace, which honestly, I was like, she looks like somebody else. Who does she look like? And then when Ru said that, I'm like, oh my God, it was Grandpa Munster.
I'm going to tell you something, because when she said that on my first watch, I was like, I don't agree with her. She was giving more, both of them actually were doing Paul Lynn. I don't know, for some reason, right?
Right.
But then when on the second watch, I was like, no, she's 100% right. Like maybe early on she wasn't doing Grandpa Munster, but like 100% she was doing Grandpa Munster, like middle all the way through. Again, another reference that I think a lot of people under a certain age are not going to get, but she was 100% doing, Al Lewis was the actor's name. She was doing Al Lewis as Grandpa Munster 100%, hands down. That's what she was doing.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I thought between the two Liberaces, she was better. She was the better of the two, that there was a ability to volley back and forth with Ru. And it makes sense that she was one of the top two at the end of the week.
Yeah. No. And I think she deserved it. She was one of she was the better of the two and one of the strongest in the whole thing. That said, I think they both missed the boat on this one. I think the approach would have been, and people don't know the history of Liberace. Liberace died of AIDS, and we're going to come back to that in a second. But even I think up until he died, he was denying he was gay.
Right.
You know, I don't think he died out of the closet. I think even now he was like, didn't he goes on some sort of diet or something like that? Like he died in the closet. So I don't know why you're not doing it, if you're going to be edgy with that character, you're going to do that character, why they weren't doing it as Liberace didn't, like wondering why he was there. He's not a gay man. Like, right. But then still, it's a more nuanced version, but then still like playing the game, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Unfortunately, the only reference I can think of that would be really good at comparison, and people will see the irony in this, is the way that Nick Swardson does Terry from Reno 911. So Terry from Reno 911 denies that he's gay or a male prostitute, but is constantly playing still into the fact that he's a male prostitute, you know?
Okay.
And so I think if you would have done sort of that approach where like Liberace's like, I don't know why I'm here, but, you know, I can't think of the joke in the moment. Again, it's a little bit tougher because you're doing it with another Snatchler, not with RuPaul. And, but I think that would have been the approach, just to keep the closeted little Liberace in there. Okay, next we have
wait. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said. When you were a kid in the 80s, did you used to watch Saturday Night Live?
I started watching Saturday Night until about like 12.
Okay, so I remember the week that Liberace died on Saturday Night Live. The cold open was It was Phil Hartman as Liberace in heaven, with the big wings and everything, playing the piano. And it was where they show where like the camera swoops in and it comes a close up of Phil Hartman, and he just looks at the camera and in Liberace's voice says, "If you think the lawyers are going to let me make any sort of joke right now, you're ridiculous." Live from New York at Saturday night. For some reason, that anytime I hear Liberace, I picture Phil Hartman in my head. So,
you know, Liberace and Rock Hudson are like really important in my life because I'm not a big Rock Hudson or Liberace fans, but you know the way the news was presenting 8 at the time, and I was a little boy, was they made it seem that these people got AIDS just by the very nature of being gay.
Yeah.
And so I remember, and I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff, is lying awake at night, like crying and upset and not able to sleep because I knew this secret. I already knew by the time Liberace and Rock Hudson died, I knew I was gay.
Right.
Or that I liked boys and didn't really understand what was going on. That God was going to punish me and give me this disease, and I was going to die.
It wasn't an if, but when.
Yeah, and that again, that you know, because it was the news and it was the 80s, they didn't say they got it from fucking, you know?
Right.
They just said gay men are getting this disease. And for a little brain, I just thought, oh, because they like boys, they're just getting it. I didn't understand like fucking and cum and shit like that. Now I can't get enough of it.
I would hope not.
Yeah,
right.
I wish there was like a soda fountain of cum, and I would just drink from it all the time. You know, like those Coke freestyle machines, but I would just pick different races. You know, like I'll have some Japanese cum and Middle Eastern cum, put it all together. Anyway,
right.
So, yeah, so it's weird. So Liberace plays. My Liberace thing is because Liberace, in particular, not Rock Hudson. I knew Liberace was not the gay I wanted to be. So it was like also like this repulsion, strangely also knowing, is that what I'm supposed to be? Do I have to be like Liberace? You know?
Yeah.
And so anyway. Plastique is Ali Wong.
Plastique is probably thankful that they don't have eliminations. It was talk about a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
That is the only way to describe Plastique during Snatch Game.
I don't know what the joke is. I don't have it in my head. But I'll say this. When Raven said to Plastique or to Ali Wong, what do you see in the future for Bachelor number 2, which was Liberace? I was like, in the hands of a braver soul. There's definitely a very funny joke that you could make that they would probably never air on that show.
Right.
But she was just deer in the headlights. Yeah, you're right. It was really, really, really bad. And she might be the loser for me for the week.
Another thing that just in general that I noticed, particularly I think more about this group, was there was no, I feel like in other Snatch Games of Love, they never say who they are. So that way there's like the big surprise between the surprise, I'm saying that in rabbit ears, between the Snatchler and when they each come out. Whereas Vanjie definitely said at one point she was Cleopatra. And I feel like Nina said at one point she was Liberace. And then we also have where, which we're going to talk about Gottmik in a second. She goes, Rue, I'm a dog. I'm more worried about bones. And there just was, I think this whole Snatch Game was just very sloppy to me.
Mm-hmm. It would have been better off as a traditional Snatch Game. It was. I think there's a lot of things that went wrong with this part. I think stronger, they only do Snatch Game of Love with All-Stars. And historically, there have been at least some strong All-Stars who are good at Snatch Game. This one was, girl, if this is the B team, they're like the C and D team in terms of All-Stars. And I'm including Gottmik. Just because Gottmik won, so did Deja Sky. That's all I'm going to say. And so this was not a good group of girls for this. And I think they needed a more traditional Snatch Game, not one that turns it on its head.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, going back to Ali Wong and Plastique, I think Plastique has never really worked her humor or personality muscle because she's really pretty. And also English is a second language. Right. A lot of times pretty people have no sense of humor and get really offended by things. The reason I'm trying to shoehorn a story in, I forgot to tell this story. But, I'm an OnlyFans subscriber. I switch my content around all the time. But once you subscribe to someone, they always have you on their mailing address, right? And they're always dropping you messages, buy this video, that video. And I get an email every day from this Reno Gold selling me this and selling me that, right? And I never pay attention to it or anything. But then, sometimes what they do is they send you these messages and they're like, hey, baby, are you thinking about me right now? And I just ignore those, right?
Right.
But Reno sent me one of those like earlier this week. And then the next day, I got one that was like, hey, baby, did you see that message? And I was like, what is this? And then I got another one that was like, hello? So I go, this is weird. So I respond and I say something to the effect of, I know this isn't Reno Gold, but in what universe is Reno Gold desperate for me to respond to this message, but I'm going to play along high or something. It wasn't that bad, right? It was just like, I just don't imagine a universe where Reno Gold is sitting there on pins and needles waiting for me to respond to his sexy message. Something along those lines.
Maybe Reno's a big Drag Race recap fan.
Maybe. Well, then that's not my name. It really is just like user F1245, Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And I get this message the next day, and it's from Reno Gold. And he's like,
what?
Yeah. And he's like, no, I really do send my own messages. And I don't know why you have to be so rude and mean. If you're so rude and mean, just don't respond. And I wrote back, I said, how was I rude? That's the thing, is I was not rude. I was just, in fact, I said, he was accusing me of like pretending to go, no, I even refer to you in the third person. I don't remember why I said this. I have to go, I'll post the screenshot of the conversation online.
Okay.
But by the way, what I love about this is in between these messages, he's sending me videos of him like, watch me fuck myself, right? But like, but he didn't respond to the next one, but I'm like, I wasn't being rude. I go, I just think it's a funny concept to think that you're so horny that you're messaging random people and won't leave them alone unless they respond.
Well, yeah, because isn't he like one of the most, like he's in the top? So is this just...
I even mentioned that in the message.
What you're doing all day? I mean, it just doesn't...
I will say, that is part of it. I will say, I actually think Reno Gold and, what the fuck is the other guy's name? The black guy, whatever his name is, the bald black guy.
Raheem
Shabazz, right?
Shabazz.
They, to me, are like...
I love how you just said the black guy, and I knew exactly who you were talking about.
And I go, those two people, if you want to start an OnlyFans business, also Jordan Starr, who's not as famous, you should study those people's business models. You really should. If you're going to do an OnlyFans, you should study how they run their OnlyFans businesses. They are very well done and very professional, and for people who like them, worth the money. And I even mentioned that in the message. So I go, I'm not being rude. I go, like, literally, like, it's a weird concept to me. Like, what's weird to me, are there people who are on OnlyFans who really think Reno Gold is sitting there like in the nude waiting to jack off when you message him back? He doesn't know what you look at, doesn't know anything about you.
Jordan Starr is not attractive.
I didn't say he was attractive.
No, I know, but that was one I hadn't heard from before, so I was just like, "Oh, well, let me see what he." No, he's not my type.
He's not attractive. What I'm saying though is like the reason I like him though is he's actually in terms of like what I like as an OnlyFans subscriber from a business point of view, I like his the best. He does message a lot, but his prices are reasonable. And he says, this will be on my feed eventually, so you can subscribe to my feed. He goes, this is just for early access.
One that I follow does that too, where they say, you know, this you can see it now, but it's usually something like 3 or 4 weeks away. It's not something where it'll be out like 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And again, like I said, his prices are, Reno Gold is really expensive. And also, like, we're taking this conversation, he'll penetrate himself with like dildos, but he won't do like collaborations where they penetrate him. He doesn't let another guy penetrate him.
Does he penetrate other guys?
No.
Okay.
They'll do blowjobs, but the most they'll do is like they put their dick up against his ass crack and like dry hump essentially, but he won't let them go inside him.
Okay.
So like if that's what you're into, like, okay.
Yeah.
Gottmik as Pal.
I was waiting for that. I knew as you were finishing, I was just like, he's going to do a pause, and then he's going to start saying Gottmik. Again, we're just making up a funny voice and saying dirty things because we know that Rue's going to laugh at it. She could have said she was the queen of Neptune or something, and it would have been the exact same thing. The makeup was great. I will say that, as far as, and especially when she would do the panting thing where she actually did kind of look like a dog's snout and mouth, but it was, I don't know. And this is somebody who I loved Gigi Good's Maria the Robot, you know, so I mean, I can appreciate it, but now it just seems where that almost gave everybody permission, or like the one the Queen of Flips. It's only been like a month and I can't
Maya
remember her
Iman
name.
LePage.
Maya Iman LePage just doing like a random person's cousin. And I want actual celebrities that people know.
So,
is this the rant? So should I just turn off the mic for a little bit?
No, not that long. It's a conversation more than that. So Gottmik, here's the deal. I'm going to say it was bad. Right? I don't like it. It wasn't good. Shouldn't have won. I probably would have given it to Angeria over her. But
I could see that.
That said, she did follow my advice. She took a seemingly innocent thing and made it dirty. Okay?
Yeah.
Whether it be a celebrity or a dog, no one thinks of Lassie as dirty. So she took a dog, anthropomorphized it, and made the dog dirty. And we know if you do that, you're going to do well in Snatch Game. And she did it.
Right.
I don't think it's particularly effective, but it does prove my theory correct. It supports my theory that that's all you need to do to be safe. I'm not saying you're going to win. In this case, Gottmik won. But I think to be safe, that's all you need to do. And that's what Plastique should have done.
She was dirty, but she wasn't funny.
Gottmik or Plastique?
Gottmik.
Yeah, she wasn't funny. But this is going back to my next part. Is I think a lot of this is, I wouldn't necessarily say virtue signaling. I think RuPaul, first of all, as you get older, you sort of lose touch with what's popular with young people. And then you add on top of that you're really wealthy and you're the head of this show and you get more and more out of touch. And I think RuPaul's cognizant of that. So she's trying to anticipate, what are the youngs going to think? And I think she was being performative because she thought, oh, young people are going to think this is really funny. And I want to signal that I'm with it and that I get it. And that I also think this is funny. The tricky thing is when you go on Reddit, I will say I went on Reddit early on. And so it's changed in the 24 hours since I went on. I looked this morning. But early on Reddit, people were living for it. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong with these people? Because it wasn't funny. And it wasn't good. And RuPaul, like when the way RuPaul died when she said she was spayed, I was like, that's not funny. It's not, it wasn't even, and I'm not saying like it's not, I'm not even saying it in like Jorgeous, who was so not funny, she was funny, Right. It was just not funny. It seemed try hard. It seemed like, and in the way RuPaul was dying, I was like, oh, this is in the bag for Gottmik because she thinks, oh, pretending to be Lassie and say dirty things, the cool kids and people think Gottmik is cool, they're going to find her funny.
Right.
And it was not good at all. And anyone who thinks so, it's Emperor has no clothes. There's certain people who I'll give leeway and be like, yeah, well, it wasn't for me, but whatever, right? This was just almost, I would say, objectively not funny. I don't see how it won, but I think it's part of, you have RuPaul. I think it's almost truly Emperor has no clothes. Is RuPaul thinks, quote unquote, this is funny, even though I don't think even it's not her style of humor. It's really weird. Like, yes, in the very basic way it is, but it was it was a mixture of absurd with also saying dirty things. It just didn't work at all. And the way she was just over laughing in not a real way, I was like, and then people are taking that signal and saying like, oh, well, then therefore it's funny. It was just a mess. And I didn't like it. It might have been one of my least favorite Snatch Game characters, if I'm being honest with you.
Wow.
Thank you. I think, and I might as well give this speech now. This might be one of the worst episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race I've ever seen. And that's why I'm like the negativity, I don't mind doing it today. What I worry about was like in a bigger picture context, are we seeing the death rattle of this show? Because if this is what they are presenting in a bigger season, in a bigger context, as a show, because some of the worst episodes we've seen before have been clunkers in the middle of either an average season or an okay season or even a good season,
Mm-hmm.
But this just seems to be one of the worst episodes I've ever seen in the series. Third in line with what I think are kind of mid to lower than average episodes already. So I worry about it. I don't know where you fall in on this.
I did not laugh as much as I would have liked to with a snatching game. Snatch Game. I always like traditional Snatch Game versus Snatch Game of Love, because there is more of a chance for everybody to volley off each other and volley with Ru. And this is where it takes a specific person to be able to do that and do that well. I don't know that it's the death rattle of the show. I think because we just came off such a strong season 16. I think that we may be seeing, I think personally, and I said this on the first episode I was in, they need to take a break with All Stars.
Yeah.
There needs to be where they say, we're going to take a pause. We'll be back in 3 years or 4. I mean, there was 4 years difference between All Stars 1 and All Stars 2.
Yeah.
And it gave them time to grow, not only to grow the show in itself and make All Stars a bigger deal, but also to allow for, fan bases to grow and for girls to, evolve and to become really good. And now it just seems like you were seeing girls from just like 2 years ago. I don't want to see girls from 2 years ago. I want to see girls from I want to have like my Tatiana moment of where Tatiana came back and was amazing on All Stars 2, and kind of wowed everybody. I want to be wowed. And a lot of these girls, I'm not necessarily seeing that. You could make an argument for a good chunk of season 16's girls to show up on All Stars in the future, but I don't want to see them on All Stars 10. I want to see if they're going to do it yearly. I want to see Saphira Crystal on like All Stars 12. Like where it is just like I mean, as much as we were blown away by her I was blown away by her on 16, she was my pick for winner. I want to see what that looks like, even with even more years of experience and more years of creativity and more money in her pocket to create the looks that she needs to for this. That's what I want to see. And I feel like with some of these girls, they're just not getting that. There's also been talk about the contracts, that a lot of girls don't want to sign the contracts anymore because they give their souls to World of Wonder. So I know that that's a part of it too. But I don't know. I don't think it's the death rattle of the main show. I think it might be a warning sign to WoW that maybe we need to take a break from.
Okay, I'll revise it to it's maybe the death rattle for All Stars format, because this is you can't keep putting content out like this and expecting the audience to stick around. Yeah, this is not good. And anybody who thinks it is, go back and watch better seasons and then tell me that this is good or this is decent or this is what you want to see. It's not good. And they can do better than this. They can do better. I'm going to say that they're burned out. I'm going to say World of Wonder the staff is burned out.
And as much as you and I talked about the cast when we did the Meet the Queens video and we don't understand why the cast got there, it's not, is it the best cast on an All Stars? Absolutely not. It's not a horrible cast when you think about it. And now that we've gotten to kind of reintroduce ourselves to some of these contestants, you're just like, okay, I get why you're on this season. Some of them, there's a couple of them that I don't understand why they're there, but I think burnt out is a really good way to say it. That, which we saw with Ru at the table visits.
Yeah.
Where it's just sort of like, okay, I mean, and now we're seeing that Michelle's taking over Down Under, and maybe Ru is just ready to just sort of cash them checks and to not really think about it anymore.
I don't even think it's at that level. I think it's really at a level that we're not seeing. I think World of Wonder has to spend the money. And I can understand, like I talked about this. This has been the same staff for now since season 7. We're going on like 10 years of the same
10
crew.
years.
And okay, they're like a family. They don't want to see anybody go, yada, yada, yada. But maybe pare them down to one season and bring in new blood for the All-Stars. Bring in new blood to bring in other shows, bring in other content, bring in new spins on this, right? Not break up the family, but make a new family. because the family right now is burned out. They're out of ideas. Yeah, and we're seeing it. I don't blame the girls. Like, because like, for instance, even right now, off the top of my head, like, look how we solved the problem with how to make the chop more interesting. And it's not because it's not because we're genius. It's when you're that close to the material, you can't see the forest for the trees. So they can't think, oh, I never thought of the fact that we could just tell them what the next episode is in a general way beforehand. It's not that they're dumb. It's just they're so close to the material, they didn't even think about it. When you're a writer, sometimes you work so closely with the material. Often you need an editor because they can see things from a. That's probably why a therapist is good, especially in couples therapy.
I was going to say that you're describing therapy.
Yeah, is you're so in it that you can't see. You can't see the forest for the trees. You need an outside observer. And so, and so I think they need to bring in some outside people because, like, for instance, this is just an idea off the top of my head. Why don't you just have, people would live for this, an all-star season where it's people who are all good at the design challenges and it's only different design challenges. That's the whole thing, the whole season. And then you have one that's a comedy season, or maybe do a Survivor style where it's a split cast the entire time, half comedy, half design, and we're going back and forth, and and then you could have them join at the very end. I mean, there's so many different, but they can't see that way. They're just too in it.
Yeah.
They're too in it.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, this show's going really long. Let's move on to Runway Day. It's Runway Day and the girls get ready for the main stage. Shannel and Nina claim they will give their extra badge to the other if they win. As the girls discuss who they will give their extra badges to, Roxy jumps in with a crackpot theory. Shannel proposes that if she and Nina both win, they should give the extra badge to each other. In private, Nina rethinks her pledge to give Shannel her extra badge. And later, the girls accuse Angeria of being spicy, which Angeria pretends to take offense to. Your thoughts on Runway Day?
They would never let them give each other the badge. I'm sure that there is something that they can't just give each other the badge.
On this season, I don't know what goes.
Not on this season where everybody's, kumbaya and walking children in nature. I don't think that's the case. On an if they had done this format with All Stars 2, some of those, absolutely, there would be situations in which there were girls doing shit like this. But I can't imagine a world just from a PR, just from the girls' personal, social media accounts and stuff like that, where they're going to kind of hoard the pins. I couldn't see that at all. So it also definitely turned into where they were talking about, well, but if you do this, then you've got a target on your back. So you're going to want to give it to this girl because it just turned very much into the meme of the woman with all the mathematical things.
Oh yeah.
It just became very okay. Now at this point, I don't care who you give a pin to next week. Just give somebody a pin. I don't give a shit anymore. There's almost an overthinking it at that point.
Well, we'll find out next week. I actually think Nina's going to give Shannel the pin because Shannel didn't win. The problem's been avoided. And I think it's pretty obvious. And I think Gottmik's going to give her pin to Vanjie.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much know, right? Well, maybe there'll be surprises. You never know.
Well, but I will say did you watch Untucked?
No.
So because they ask Gottmik that, and she says, I'm not sure. Because on the one hand, she said, Vanjie and I are friends. She goes, on the other, Shannel is my drag idol. Mm-hmm. And then she says somebody else too that doesn't have whoever the other one that doesn't have a pin. And she gives a reason for that.
Oh, no, Plastique has a badge.
No, it's not Plastique. It's Roxy?
Roxy doesn't have a badge.
She gives Roxy a reason for some, but so we think that it's going to be Vanjie, and it probably is, but it might be somebody else. But I agree with you 100%. Nina is going to give, because it was Nina's idea to say I'm going to give it to Shannel just out of respect.
I think that's kind of how Nina is. I think she was just wanted to avoid if they gave it to each other, she wanted to avoid the idea of collusion because she's trying to raise money. I don't know how that would affect her money for the Trevor project, but whatever. All right, the runway, a tail and two titties. Any big thoughts on any of the looks, Taylor?
I liked the Jessica Rabbit look. Mm-hmm. Just it was sort of funny. I thought that the prettiest of all of the looks was probably Plastique's, where she was the fox, the legendary fox of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get why they were praising Nina's look. I thought Nina's look was horrible. Nina's looked crafty to me, with the planets and the comet tail.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Which I appreciate the fact that it was the comet tail instead of an animal tail. I get that, but I feel like that could have been executed very differently than it was.
Yeah. But it was very old school drag, which I think a lot of people like Robert would appreciate. It was very that. Yeah, the looks were fine. It's part of my whole thing where it's like, the concept, I don't blame the queens, they're given the concepts. The concept seems sort of lazy. It's just part of the whole episode, they think, being like, it's just a lazy episode.
Right.
All right, back on the main stage, RuPaul names Nina West and Gottmik the top 2 all-stars of the week, forcing them to face off in a lip-sync battle for their charities. The song, Banana by Anita, featuring Becky G, by the way. Becky G, who was on last season, right? Was that Becky G? In the end, Gottmik won the money for her charity and the right to cut one of the queens. After some deliberation, she named her choice, Jorgeous. Taylor, any final thoughts on the episode?
No, I talked much more than I expected to.
I
didn't think I had this.
I hope we make it to 45 minutes. And now it's for sure going to be either close to or over an hour and a half. And I have to edit it. So people who listen later, there might be stuff that I edit, even though I don't think there's much. There's a moment we have to edit because I took a pause, but like there wasn't big stuff that I was like, we have to edit that out. That's when I'm like, what did we talk about for 90 minutes?
Yeah.
And I have one more thing to say. You better work. No. I forgot to say this earlier. And I'm glad I'm doing it at the end because I totally wanted to bring this up. This guy that they brought on from the Paulette Fund.
Oh, God.
I'm sure he's a very nice man. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He was dressed like a West Hollywood older gay man. Right?
Mm-hmm.
With the no socks, with the shoes with the buckle and the tight black pants and the weird suit and the thick glasses. And then he did that thing where it looks like he blew someone and doesn't know where to spit the cum and is looking around the room. where the lips are really pursed. Where he's like, I can't even do it anyway, like he's trying to find where to spit the cum. And then he opened his mouth. It was like a South Park offensive stereotype type of a gay man. He was like, hello, queens. And here's the deal. If you haven't watched the episode, I'm underplaying it. He's like, hi, queens. The Paulette Fund is something that... And by the way, for those of you who think I'm being mean to this guy, I am. But he's one of the guys that if I saw him at the Abbey, I was like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Why are you talking to me, Tubby? Get away. Like, this guy, maybe not this guy in particular, but this guy has been a total fucking... piece of shit to me, right? And so I don't care. I have anger towards this guy. I don't know if it's this guy, but maybe he's a very nice man.
This guy was definitely in Puerto Vallarta during the pandemic.
Yeah, talking to and then trying to take the busboy home. But he's like, so queens. You know what it was? He was like a rebooted Charles Nelson Riley. He was like, hello, queen. Another old-timey reference.
Right.
Him and Marla Gibbs and Liberace shall get together and entertain RuPaul. But he was like, hi, queens, it's me. The guy from the Paulette Fund.
Yeah.
That should be his drag name, Paulette Fund.
It felt to me, this guy paid $200,000 to be able to say, and don't fuck it up.
Yeah,
that to me was that speech.
We're willing to donate all this money for the show, but do you mind if I just come in and say hi to the queens? It's just something I've always wanted to do. I've been a big fan.
Fufferin' fuckatash.
Yeah, fufferin' succotash. Exit stage left.
Exit stage left. Again, another reference 80% of the people that listen to the show won't get.
By the way, everybody, remember to buy... What was the name of that alcohol brand that they used to always sponsor the show?
Absolute Vodka?
Yeah. Make sure and buy your Absolute Peach Vodka. Or what was the Jessica Wilde? The acai. I'm going to go have an acai cocktail after the show. I'll meet you backstage in Untucked.
Or Mandarin Orange.
Hi, Shannel. I remember you. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Be sure to join us next week and every week as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star Season 9. So for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
sashay away until next week.
Thank you for listening to Drag Race Recap. Have something to say? Leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/afterthoughtmedia. You can also email us at dragracerecap@afterthought.media. For more Drag Race and LGBTQ content, support us over at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. This podcast was produced by Sabrina Vadabancourt. Taylor the Latte Boy has another podcast. It's called Pod Is My Co-Pilot. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Taylor on Instagram at PIMCTaylor. Follow Joe Batance on Instagram at Joe Batance. Special thanks to these expensive tier Patreon supporters: Alex S., Anonymous, April Pacheco, Astute Girl, Brad Coley, Deckhead, Doofus Maximus, E. Smith, Emma, Billsket Pony, Flying Suki, Humble Pie, Isaac Martin, J. Thomas Plank, Jesse Harris, Kathy Zender, Lauren Eckert, Lucy Carrasco, Luke Stamen, Mike Yeager, Nikki Baker, Poppy Woods, Ricardo the Hood Edda, Robert NYC, Sarah Yu, Runner Brandon, Tom Bombs, Travi Cosmos, Troy Anderson, and Zach Nelson. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media podcast.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.